So, on one of those YouTube videos, a guy asked a question, and it was a really good question, a legitimate question. He said, I said something about progressing and advancing a horse out of a snaffle bit, and his question was, if snaffle bit's working, why would you ever need to progress one out of it? And then he had a secondary question with that: what actual benefits do other kind of bridles give you? What's the real difference? And so, being as when I do these videos, I usually think about, I either do them right off the cuff, off the top of my head, like the one about the war bridle, or I think about them for about a week. And so I haven't thought about this for a week, so I've kind of got some notes here. But it's a totally legitimate question, and what I want to address first is, if you've ridden a horse its whole life in a snaffle bit, and you're happy with the snaffle bit, and your horse is doing everything you want him to do in the snaffle bit, and everything's hunky-dory, by all means, keep riding him in a snaffle bit if that's as far as you want to advance that horse. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've seen a lot of horses that are 17, 18 years old that should still be ridden in a snaffle bit, but are ridden in other kind of bridles. And in my cowboy days, there was a lot of them that were aged horses that just got rode in a snaffle bit. But to my thinking, I'm always thinking about a finished bridle horse. And so a horse, I've always got its progression and its advancements in my mind from the very start, from the first time I ever put my hands on him. I'm planning out how he's going to make each step, how he's going to progress, when he's going to progress. And because I've spent so much time in the performance world with these horses, there's a snaffle bit horse for the futurity, and then after that, I guess you can derby him in the snaffle too, but then you move on to the hackmore, and then you move on to the two-rein, and then you move on to the bridle. And then in a lot of other parts of the performance world, like the reiners and the cutters, you're out of that snaffle bit in the first 6 months and riding them in a bridle. Which isn't necessarily the best thing in the world, but that's just my thinking. So whenever I'm talking about a snaffle bit, I'm always talking about progressing the horse out of it. But if you want to keep one in a snaffle forever, that's fine. So I jotted down a couple of things. If you're not like me and have them on a schedule and have them on a timeline, why would you advance them out of a snaffle bit? Well, one of the first reasons that came to mind is snaffle bits aren't terribly comfortable for horses. They're not uncomfortable by any means, but compared to a solid mouth, solid jawed bridle that fits in their mouth and bounces, a snaffle bit hanging there isn't really super comfortable. So, say you want to just go down the trail every Saturday and you really don't need a heck of a lot of advancement in your horse. Well, if your horse can carry a bridle, he's going to be more comfortable carrying a bridle than a snaffle bit. So that's just off the top of my head. Snaffle bits offer less communication than other bridles, and far less sophisticated communication. And by that, what I mean is, a snaffle only does one thing. You pull on a snaffle. You pull on one rein or the other. If you pull on both reins, you're not doing anything. You need riding lessons. But yeah, you pull on one rein, you pull on the other. It gives a direct signal of the direction you want to go. That's the only thing the snaffle bit communicates. And it's really, really good at that, but that's not a very sophisticated method of communicating. Ideally, we want our horses to feel our bodies so well and to understand us so well and to have such a great level of communication with us that when we look, they look. I didn't pick my hand up, I didn't move my body, I didn't do anything. I looked over here, my horse looked over here. I looked over here, my horse looked over there. When you have a finished bridle horse, that's what they do. They just go off, you turn in your head. And on a finished bridle horse, if you've done something 2 or 3 times in a row, like you're processing cattle and so you're in the pens, that horse figures out, he even knows what gate you're going to when you look at that gate. He just goes right over that gate because you opened it 3 times in a row. Okay, we're going to go do that again. So that's the level of communication eventually you get from a horse. going through the entire process, the snaffle bit, the hackamore, the two rein, and then finally the bridle. If they just stay in a snaffle bit their whole life, it's just, hey, look over here. Okay, I look over here. A snaffle bit tells a horse where to be, and that's all it does. I say a lot of times, a hammer's the best tool in the world for putting in a nail. I mean, that's the best tool I've ever seen for putting a nail in a board. But that's the only thing a hammer's good for. A hammer's not good for anything else. I kind of feel the same way about a snaffle bit. For what it's for, it's the best thing there is. But it's not really good for anything else. People might say, well, my horse, I mean, he neck reins and he's broke and he does everything in any bit, so I may as well use a snaffle bit. Well, if you're using the snaffle bit in any other way than you pull the right rein with the right hand and you pull the left rein with the left hand, you're not using the bit correctly. You're trying to use a hammer to put a screw in. It might work, but it's not the right way to do it. So if a horse is at that level of riding, why would you use a snaffle bit? Is my question. Not why shouldn't I use a snaffle bit? I mean, you can. But it's not, why shouldn't I use a snaffle bit? I'm thinking, why in the heck would you use a snaffle bit? If you've got a horse that's that advanced, I'd like to put on a piece of equipment that offers a better and more sophisticated level of communication. So it makes him easier. It's an easier job for him. So it's easier for him to figure out what I'm up to. That's my thinking on that. And one more thing about the snaffle, and a lot of people think that we ride young horses in a snaffle because it's very, very mild bit. And then the natural progression of thought there is I like my horse and he doesn't need anything more, and so I may as well ride him in this very, very mild bit. Okay, well, it's not a mild bit by any means. There's no such thing as a mild bit or a severe bit. A bit's a bit. They're all bits. You can hurt a horse with any of them. People think that snaffles are mild because they have a 0 ratio leverage. A lot of times you'll hear people say 1-to-1 ratio. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio because they think I pull with 1 pound and I get 1 pound. No, that's a 0 ratio. 1-to-1 is a teeter-totter, and that's a lot of leverage. 1-to-1's a lot of leverage. But technically, a snaffle, yes, if it's a zero ratio device, zero leverage ratio device. But then think about the fact that it's hooked to my body, and my body's got a lot of leverage in it. And I've got 2.5, 3 feet of reins, then going to my arms, all the leverage in my back, all the leverage in my legs. I did this as an experiment one time, 10, 12 years ago, when I was thinking about snaffle bits for some reason. And I just took 2 pieces of rope and I tied them onto a pallet, and I started putting weight on there. And standing flat-footed, then I would pull to see how much I could pull, how many pounds of pressure I could pull. So I don't remember exactly what it was, and I just said you're not supposed to use snaffle that way, but at some point or another, everybody does. But standing flat-footed on concrete, I could pull like 300 and some pounds, just dead weight could pull it towards me. And then I got to thinking about it, and I saddled a sawhorse. I saddled a sawhorse, and I had it tied off to where it would all be solid and everything. Anyway, the long and the short of it is in a saddle with my stirrups, so I can increase the leverage in my back even more because I can press on those stirrups. There was 500 and some pounds that I could dead pull to me. And I'm not a really super stout guy. Nobody ever said, God dang, you ever see that Brett? That's a strong son of a buck. He picks up all kinds of heavy stuff. I don't. I get other people to do it. So just think of it. Think of that. You think, well, a snaffle bit's so mild. I could 500 and some odd pounds of pressure I could put on a horse's mouth if I pull with both hands. So that's really not mild. And then the next natural progression of thought is somebody would say, well, yeah, but what if you had a leverage bit and you pulled that hard? And there's where you got it. Because of the curb strap, you're only allowed to put so many pounds of pressure. I could pull with 200 pounds of pressure with this hand if I was able to do that. But that curb makes it to where only X amount of pressure can be put on the horse's mouth because of the way it affects the leverage. Okay, back to my notes here. The second part of his question why would you bother using any other kind of bit? Okay, some bits are straight up, you're just getting more leverage out of the deal and easier to where you don't have to pull as hard. That's really just how some bits work. You add some leverage and then you can put your 3 pounds of pressure, make it 12 or 30 or whatever the case may be. In my opinion, anything with a broken mouthpiece, I call it, no matter what the bit is. If it's got a broken mouthpiece or a chain or anything in it, I call it a snaffle. It's a snaffle to me. And any kind of snaffle with leverage, the whole point is just more leverage. It's just so you don't have to work as hard to pull on that horse. That would be a correction bit. Like I said, anything with chain in it. The ever feared Tom Thumb bit. All of those kinds of things. Other ones, bar bits, which is just, some people call them pipe bits. It's just got a piece of pipe with some mullen in it. That's pretty much just to have some more leverage. I wrote another one down here. Oh, most grazer bits, for the most part, the little short cheek grazer bits with a little bit of a mouthpiece in it. And I've got them and I use them and they're fine. There's nothing wrong with using any of those kind of bits. But let's be honest, we're just getting a little more leverage out of the deal and kind of trying to put some pressure on that chin groove rather than put all of it on the mouth and get them to respond off of that chin groove rather than the mouth. The California style bits, part of their design is what offers better and more sophisticated communication. And then, of course, people are always trying to rebuild the wheel, so you see some that bit isn't going to balance. It's not going to work. But balance is the key. The California style bridles, they balance in the horse's mouth, and that promotes self-carriage because the horse balances to the balance of the bit. And, of course, if the horse has better self-carriage or more self-carriage, then it's easier, the communication is easier and more sophisticated in the sense that they'll get more communication off of your legs and off of your seat and off of your breathing and off of the direction you turn your head and everything like that. Yes, those are leverage bits, but the idea is the balance of the bit. For instance, a Santa Barbara cheek, it is made in a specific way to where it'll balance and the release comes in an exact manner every single time. Other cheeks, like a Las Cruces, a horse has to really balance straight up and down to really get along in a Las Cruces. All of those things are made so that we can communicate better and more sophisticatedly with our horse. And then finally you get onto the spade, and I'm just kind of hitting the high points on all this because I'm writing a book that is going in depth of all this, and I want to sell it to you. I don't want to give it to you. But then we get into the spade and the spade, the Chileno, and I guess technically anything that would have the mouthpiece higher than the purchase, above the purchase, anything like that would be a signal bit. And we wonder, well, what's the signal it's giving the horse? I'll tell you that in the book. But it offers a signal in the sense that the port of the bit lifts off of the tongue before anything else happens, and that's the signal. What that signal is, like I said, I'll explain it another time. But those kind of bits offer the most communication and the most sophisticated communication, because whenever that port lifts off the tongue, that horse goes to looking around for okay, where's my cue from my leg going to come? Where's the cue from the breath going to come? Where's the cue from him turning his head and looking at a specific cow? Okay, I know I'm supposed to go to that cow. That's where you get into those bits. So yes, they do offer some benefits. Going out of the snaffle does offer some great benefits to the horse and the rider and the whole horsemanship art. What's the point if you're not trying to get better and make it prettier? I want people to look at my horses and go, man, that's a cool horse. Not for my sake. That's just the whole point of doing all this, is to make a horse real pretty and make you move around really cool. And it's art for art's sake. And so to me, that's the main reason for advancing out of a snaffle bit, is to advance the art in my horse and advance the art in myself. Cameraman says, if you advance the art in your horse, he will have a better life when he moves to a new home. Oh, I see what you're saying, because I sell a lot of horses. And so, yeah, make the horse better, make the horse more artful, then I'm really benefiting that horse long term, because whoever buys him is, you can't help it. You take care of one better if you like him better. That's just how it works. There was another thing I was going to say in regard to that. Yeah. So if you're really truly in a position where you say, well, my horse does everything I want, and I don't need this really advanced level of communication. One is my horse doesn't need it because maybe he's better at getting rode than I am at riding. Maybe you're a green rider or whatever, and you just do something pretty simple. You trail ride or do things like that. And I always say trail riding is so simple. If you've ever been on a trail ride with my dad, you need a broke son of a buck, but that's neither here nor there. But if I was trying to do something just to have it milder on the horse, I would just ride him in a really soft rawhide hackamore. It's still a leveraged device. You have an unlimited amount of communication available to you if you want to advance the horse. But if you don't pull on a hackamore, nothing happens, and they can just plod along and be happy. Our favorite old horse that's ponied colts for me and snubbed colts for me for like 15 years now. My wife rides him in a hackamore most of the time, and whenever it's cold, I try to ride everything in a hackamore just for the benefit of them. And going to do a Jen Psaki thing where I go back to where I started and probably didn't really tell you anything. In the beginning, I said, people think that you ride a colt in a snaffle bit because it's so mild. Well, the truth is, and I wish I could remember which trainer said this. She was a really famous 3-day eventer. And it might have been Candace King, but I don't remember for sure. But I'll just give Candace credit for it. She said, yeah, the real reason we ride colts in a snaffle bit is because we don't trust them to behave. And that's the real reason, because you don't trust a snaffle bit colt to behave, because you can take that son of a gun's head away and say, hey, you have to behave. You cannot buck me off. You cannot run off. That's the real reason behind the snaffle bit, is because you can get so much control. It's not real sophisticated, and it's not real mild, but you can get a lot of control really fast with it. And so, trying to end all these because I ran out of safety tips, because safety's actually not my middle name, it's Danger. Actually, it's Elliot. Since I ran out of safety tips, I've been trying to talk about, or do some philosophy and talk about cool things like that. So in the book The Prince, is written by a guy named Machiavelli, and you all should read it. He said a really cool thing. Fate may be the arbiter of half our actions. Still, she allows us to decide the other half. I thought that was kind of a good thing, and especially in vein of, why would I advance my horse? Because you're allowed to.